Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is C. Ron Allen, and on behalf of the men of Alpha Fraternity here in South Palm Beach County, let me thank you for being here this evening to be part of this discussion to address such an important topic. I should add that although this forum is organized by the Alpha Phi Alpha, the sentiment is shared by the members of the other 8 Black Greek letter organizations, which comprise the Divine Nine. I look out in the audience, I see some of them here. If you're a member of the Divine Nine, will you stand and be recognized, please? Thank you. I must also thank the shepherd of this house, my pastor, the Reverend Dr. Leonard C. Johnson, for opening up his place of worship to the community to share ideas and to address matters of concern that will improve the lives of residents in this community. Let me also acknowledge our city commissioner, Shirley Johnson, our assistant chief, Delray Hunter, and the president of our local fraternity, Mr. Reginald Jackson, who's also celebrating his birthday today. Folks, we've all seen or have heard about the tragedy that occurred in Memphis a few weeks ago, and it is an understatement to say that people all over the globe are concerned, bothered and outraged by what transpired in Memphis, but they're also more concerned about what's being done to prevent something like this in their communities, and even right here in our beloved 3-time All-America city of Delray Beach. Therefore, our chief of police, Russ Major, has agreed to outline for us tonight his plans on averting such occurrence in Delray Beach, as well as answering any other law enforcement related questions that you may have. We thank you for being here with us this evening, Chief. We do have some questions that we will ask the Chief, and if you have a question, you're also invited to come forward. There'll be a microphone in the center here, and you'll be able to do so. Before we begin, I will invite Chief Major to say a few words and introduce yourself, please.
I appreciate you all inviting me here tonight. It's my pleasure to be here. I hate what I see on TV. It doesn't seem to go away. And I want you all to feel a level of confidence and comfort of what we provide as a police department for the residents of Delray Beach. It's not lip service. I could stand up here and tell you all what you want to hear. I think the proof is in the pudding, and we put out a good product. I want you all to feel comfortable, and I want you to have that public trust that we absolutely need. Work with us. We work with our community. We're very different at Delray Beach as a police department. I got here 27 years ago, very different. We were doing things the right way, but we do them much better now. And this city has changed so much. You know, we all don't look the same, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. We're all human beings. We all deserve the respect and the dignity and treating people right, like we all should get. So I believe in that, and I want to break down any barriers. I want to talk about anything that's on your mind. Again, I hate what's on TV because that one big broad brush paints us all into that corner that we all look like that's how we do business, and we don't do that here. So it's my pleasure. I'm glad that you called on us for me to come up and speak, and I will answer, like I said, I'll be as transparent as possible with you.
Tell us about yourself. How long have you been in the force?
I've been here 27 years. I've worked in almost every division at the police department. You know, if I knew then what I knew now, you know, maturity and wisdom, time. I was telling somebody that I wish I could go back on the street now, knowing what I know now, because I would be so much better at what I do. and just having that wisdom. A lot of what I do in my successes here is a team. I have Assistant Chief Hunter. I have Lieutenant Campbell in the back there. I have other officers here that help me make my success. This is a team effort. I can sit here and tell you all about what I do and how I think, but it's the other 160 people doing what I say and thinking like me, or are we just all over the place? So it's a business. This is like the CEO. I'm the CEO of a business called police, but it's my job and my responsibility to make sure my business, the police department, is doing the right thing. I enjoy what I do. I really do. It's a lot of work. It's more mental, heavy lifting than anything else. I'm not digging ditches, but there's a lot of good changes I can make in my position, a lot of positive changes, and a lot of connection. I want us to really have that community feel. You know, a lot of us chiefs before me paved the way. Sims and Schrader, and Goldman and Overman, you know, names of the past that have definitely made my job a little easier along the way. And here I am, and hopefully I can develop that confidence, and we don't have to be that thing on TV. That's not our agency. That's not our city. So I look forward to tonight, and thank you also very much for having me here.
Now, Chief, one question that's on everyone's mind is does Delray Beach have a special unit similar to the Memphis Police Department?
We have a unit vaguely close. I mean, we have a tactical team unit, and back in the day, depending on your age, it was called Jump Out, but it really wasn't called that. That's what the neighborhood called us. It was 4 guys riding or gals riding in a truck, 4 deep in an SUV. It was all blacked out. We all knew who we were, so we really weren't jumping out on anybody secretly. But that was really to combat drugs in our community. It was easier to drive around in an unmarked vehicle and drive through the neighborhoods and try to get to some of the subjects that were selling drugs, and we want to get that out of our community. That's about the closest we have had. That unit is not just drugs. A lot of the crimes are based on trends. You know, 1 year or two it could be crack cocaine, and another could be marijuana, another one could be heroin. So we really try to have a unit focused on that, but it's not focused on individuals. It's not focused on aggression. It's focused on crime trends. So about the closest thing I could say that we have in a specialized unit that targets a specific problem would be our TAC team.
We want to hear from you, so if you have a question, just raise your hand.
I have a question. Have you addressed the Memphis issue or incident with the Delray Beach Police Department? Have you had all of the officers come in and you all discussed it?
We haven't done that specifically, but what we did do was put out emails in relation to how we are treating other people, how our supervisors are reacting, how are they going to these scenes or are they not? We have a rule in place that says that supervisors must respond to these types of calls, the higher octane calls. So there was an email, I believe Assistant Chief Hunter was behind that. They made sure that that went out. The narrative was, when you see other officers, we'll go to a police service call. When you see officers out there and somebody is getting out of line, maybe some officer is just losing his cool a little bit. It's our responsibility as other police officers that are on scene to say, hey, let me take care of this. You go over here and calm down. So it wasn't face-to-face, but it was emails that went out as an educational component for supervisors to discuss, but it went to everybody in the entire PD. But this is going to be an ongoing entity for us to make sure that we're not in this situation. But aside from the Memphis situation, we have already done this. We've already gone through training where we have said one person doing something wrong and nobody doing something about it is wrong. You know, a boss could be on scene and something's going on. Everybody's looking around, and if no one's acting, it must be okay. Those days are over. We addressed that years ago to get ahead of these types of situations where we have it in our general order that says if somebody is going too far, and I'm just using layman's terms, if someone goes too far in a situation and you're there and you don't take any action, you're just as guilty as the guy doing the action. So we've made changes much earlier than this incident, being very proactive on these types of incidents so they don't occur.
Okay, in those instances, when somebody goes too far and somebody steps in, does that officer then report it to you? Have you gotten any reports of any such actions where, hey, this officer was a little bit out of hand, you might want to talk to him?
We handle situations, I don't get them until the very end, but there's a whole hierarchy, sergeants, lieutenants, captains. When there's somebody out of line, it depends how they're out of line. If it could be something they were a little discourteous, but it didn't rise to a level where maybe the person didn't want to make a complaint, but I witnessed it. Let's say I'm a sergeant on scene and I see an officer speaking to someone in a way where I don't think it's polite. He may not be breaking a rule in the department, but it's kind of discourteous. We'll pull that person aside and talk to him, but it may end up he or she getting written up, and he may have to go to internal affairs. It just depends on the situation. But we police ourselves constantly. I was 3 years in internal affairs, and we're nonstop. For me, there's no thin blue line. I'm not trying to cover up for anybody. If you mess up, you're gonna pay the price. But I'm an education guy. If you mess up, I'm not beating you down. I'm gonna show you how you made a mistake and how to correct it and not to do it again. And I personalize it. Like, would you talk to your mother that way? Oh, they get it. But I'm about educating. I'm not about beating somebody down. But I hold everybody accountable, and that's our mindset at the agency. And that's why you don't see stuff like that happen in our agency, in our backyard.
Okay. Any other questions, anybody?
I have a numbers question. On average, how many infractions or do you really get like on a monthly basis? And of those infractions, what percentage of them are African Americans?
I don't have those numbers but we can get those numbers. I just don't have them with me today.
Do you review them on a regular basis?
We do.
And do you take actions based on the type of infractions that come up? What can be shared with us in a different setting?
Well, if you don't mind, when you say infractions, like what do you mean? And I didn't hear the back part of your question. I think I answered
I
too quickly.
might be using the word wrong.
That's okay. I just want to make sure I answer you
When
correctly.
you have arrests, or when you have situations that happen when an officer may be getting out of line, those that you talked about a few minutes ago, what percentage of those situations are involving people of African descent?
Yeah, I don't have that today, but we look at everything. We look at male, female, color, race. We look at all that, ethnicity. We track all that to make sure we're not being biased. There's no implicit bias or there's no bias of any sort going on, because we don't, obviously, if that were happening, that's a problem. But we actually account for those numbers, and I think we put them out, if I'm not mistaken, annually every year. But I would definitely give you that if you just give me the opportunity to maybe call me during the week, and we can have that information provided. I just didn't have it with me this evening.
Chief, if you will, explain the use of force continuum to her. Maybe that'll explain it.
Well, the use of force doesn't provide the numbers. We have different levels of force that we use at the agency. There's no force, ordinary force, moderate force, deadly force. I can't give you the statistics on that here tonight, but we track all those statistically. No force, obviously, is no force. No force could be something as simple as they just say, hey, come over here. It's a type of force. And maybe somebody's not free to leave, and you just say, hey, can you come over here, please? And you're directing them. So that's considered a type of force. Ordinary force is force that's not designed to create injury. It could be take someone down and around while you're effecting an arrest. And I'm talking about legitimate situations. I don't mean just walking up to someone and throwing them down. Let's say you say, hey, sir, you're under arrest. It's a domestic violence situation. We have to take action. And now C-Ron's under arrest. So when I tell C-Ron, come on, you're under arrest, and sometimes they resist. They say no. It doesn't mean go from 1 to 100. It means I'm going to escalate up. I might have to say, hey, listen, if he pulls away, I'm just going to use the absolute necessary force just to get control, put handcuffs on, and we're done. That's what ordinary force is. Pepper spray, I don't even know if too many people use those anymore, but we have it. That could be a form of ordinary force. It could be uncomfortable, but it's not designed to create injury as you would know it. Moderate force is a little bit higher step up. That's designed that it could create injury. Something like that could be a hard hand technique to really hit somebody hard, to take them down to the ground hard. It just depends on the maneuver that they may use, but that is moderate force. Even an asp you can use, or a baton. Typically, when you strike with the way you're supposed to, not the face, like in the leg, if somebody were resisting arrest, a legitimate qualified arrest, that is a moderate force. It's not technically designed to create serious injury or death. And then, of course, deadly force is self-explanatory. It's something that is designed. You could be saving somebody's life and unfortunately have to use that.
Are they required to report those?
Absolutely. All those, any kind of force that we use is documented on every single case, and we track it in our internal affairs. We are very, very computer savvy. Everything we do is in the computer and statistically driven. And we follow those numbers. Our internal affairs, we have 2 people assigned to internal affairs. I have a sergeant and a lieutenant, and they are constantly, every quarter, ripping through there and looking at it. You may have a question later on about do we have an early warning detection system, or how do we track people that are possibly doing something when you have 160 people. You can't rely on, oh, I remember when the computer spits out and says, this person's been in 3 different complaints. We need to look at him. So the computer really helps us navigate and keep track of really making sure that we're early warning detection and that we're staying on top of.
Now, would the use of taser be considered force?
Yes.
What's your policy on that?
Taser, believe it or not, is in the ordinary force, because the way it's designed, it's supposed to just control the individual. Typically, when you use a taser, it's an electronic emission. It shuts down your muscles, and you fall down on the ground, and it's over. There's not any really residual action. I had to get shot with it back in the day. They don't do it anymore. Now you just take a test, and then you shoot a dummy. But back in the day, they felt like, well, if you're going to carry it, you need to get shot with it so you can experience it. I will tell you, very uncomfortable. It does.
So I got it too.
Okay. When did you get it?
I was writing about it as a reporter.
On purpose? Okay. Leave that alone. Anyway, I had to get shot with it. It's a 5-second electrical burst, and it basically locked my body up. I couldn't move, so you'll fall down on the ground. But that maneuver itself, by being shot with it, isn't designed to create serious injury. Now you can see with the Memphis, where there's 2 ways to deploy that. I can shoot somebody about 10 or 15 feet away, and that's to create safety, and it'll hit them, the prongs will hit them, and they'll get that electric. Or, as you saw in Memphis, I think they were touching them with it. It's kind of like the old school stun guns back in the day when you had to touch somebody. It's essentially doing the same thing, but only when it's touching. So to answer your question, it's under ordinary force, and we track all of our usage. The tasers today, they're so computer driven now, it actually tells us exactly when they pulled the trigger, whether it was a warning, whether it was a shot, whether it was the probes going, or whether it was a touch, stun, no probes. It's amazing, the technology. When we turn them on, it makes our body cameras go on immediately too. So it's not like you have to turn one on and do the other. It's amazing. And we are very, very technology driven, and we have all those bells and whistles in place. And I love the whole body camera thing. Everybody wears it every day. It just keeps it honest. Because people used to come in back in the day and say, oh, he or she did this, and you don't know. It's he said, she said. It's the officers were against the public. But now the body cameras are a game changer, because you can't argue with what's on there. We can argue maybe what was said or how it was said, but the body cameras are a live video feed of what exactly went on, so it makes it easier for us.
And speaking of body cameras, how does that work? Can an officer turn them off when they feel like? Are they allowed to turn them off? How do they dump them? Tell us more about that, please.
The body cameras are supposed to be turned on at every police service call. Yeah. Technically speaking, could you turn it off manually? Yes, but it'd be a violation of our protocol. They're supposed to have it on when they go to all police service calls. And what happens is
this with all agencies or just
Delray? What I'm telling you tonight is the way we do business. And we do it, I think we have a high standard. I believe in that. I think we put out a good product, so this is Delray only. I'm not knocking anybody else if they don't do it, but I'm just telling you the way we do it. We have a rule in place that body cameras will be on at all times when you're going to a police service call. In between calls, it goes into a sleep mode. It's basically on. It's just a matter of touching it, it goes right back on. Now, some of those automatic turn-ons will be if somebody jumped out of the car and they didn't have time to turn it on, they would deploy the taser would activate the body camera. It would make it go back 30 seconds in time or a minute in time, so it would capture the actual incident. We turn our lights and sirens on because there's stressful situations, body cameras will go on. So we are a body camera all the way, all day, every day. But we track those, and at the end of the day, the officer has to put them in, and those get downloaded every single day and every shift. Now, we don't have to review those all the time, but when we need to, we can. It just depends on the situation. I get a call for service that was just taking a delayed report, no real incident, another delayed report. You can have 5 service calls and there was really no police interaction physically. There's really no need to review those. But we have the ability to review anybody's body camera anytime we want.
Sir.
Good evening.
Yes, sir.
On your body cameras, on that download, how long will that information or that video be held in your cloud system?
Great question. It depends on the nature of the call, like traffic stops. Those typically will have a certain duration as opposed to an arrest. So it just depends on the nature of the call. But we've had some cases because arrests sometimes take years, they're going to stay. We don't erase them. We've had traffic stops, and after 6 months, they will come up, they'll fall off the grid, and there'll be a non-issue. And that's only because you can understand the amount of space and time. So we are not trying to hide anything, but you have to figure at some point, some of that information, we haven't had a complaint in a couple months. It's probably understood that that's probably okay, and they don't fall off. But we do have time stamps for every type of situation. When I say time, when they actually will be deleted.
Quick question. You talked about your early warning system.
Yes.
In that system, for that delineation period, at what point, I know some agencies have a certain number or a certain type of complaint that's been filed. So for your agency, with your early warning system, is it based on the number or the type of complaint before?
I'll say both.
Okay.
Because if you have a shooting, we're reviewing that right away. Early warning detection will come out right away. If you have a complaint, someone came in and said, discourtesy, he used profanity, and I want to make a complaint. That won't necessarily trigger the early warning, but if you had 3 of those, it's going to get triggered. But if we had a shooting or a violent situation where an officer had to use serious force, that's going to take 1 trigger and we're on it. So it just depends on the situation with regard to early warning detection, but we absolutely have it, and we review it every single quarter as to where everybody, but it'll spit out whenever it spits out. You know, everybody's operating at a different level of complaints, let's say, or issues, or maybe nobody has them. But somewhere in there's something going on. You may arrest 14 people in the month of February. What did you do during those arrests? Did you take everybody down nicely? Okay, but there was some force used. Even though you took them down real nice, they complied, or maybe you didn't, there was no force. They just turned around and did this and we were done. But we can see all that every single month. And as long as we're reviewing that, we're going to know what's going on. Yes, sir.
Chief, I have a question here from a few numbers questions. First, how many hours per year is your staff required to sit down with a psychologist? Similar question, how many hours per year is your staff required to do or to review de-escalation techniques?
Well, we don't have a psychologist that we actually see, so I don't have that answer for you with regard to how many hours they would have to work before they actually see one. But what we do have in place is a wellness program we instituted at our agency. And wellness is really like taboo. It's like something about cops are supposed to be tough and we're never supposed to have a weakness and we're strong and nothing happens to us, so we never complain. But that has changed because we see officers struggling with stress, alcohol, domestic issues, drugs. I mean, they have normal problems like everybody else, and it's a very stressful job to be a police officer. even though you're doing it right, I'm not talking about people, anybody doing anything wrong, it's still a lot of stuff to do in a day, every day, and then go home and, you know, not have some feeling of stress. We mandate our officers, we have physicals every year, it's mandatory. The physicals are, they do stress tests, they do physical tests, they do a lot of barrages of tests. We unfortunately don't have a built-in psychology aspect to it, but we keep an eye on our people because we really say this wellness program is about watching out for each other. And we have wellness counselors that are actually police officers who've taken an interest in the program, and we actually self-monitor ourselves. Because, you know, that bad apple makes you all look bad, or that bad apple may need help. They may not have done anything to anybody, but you can see they're spiraling. We all got friends, we all got people at work, and you can see when someone's in a bad way, who's watching out for him or her. So we have mechanisms in place, but we don't have it the way you asked. I don't know if it's unfortunately, but we just don't have a built-in psychologist per se that actually does that.
Okay. I'll ask both. One is a follow-up, the other is in a different direction. For the individuals who are connected with wellness, what type of training do they receive to justify them being the people who are gifted with responsibility of being wellness coaches? And then question in a different direction, what percentage of your staff actually lives in Delray?
I don't know the percentage. Delray sometimes is difficult because it's expensive for officers to live in. It's a great city to live in, fantastic city. I don't know the actual percentages, but we can actually look that up, and I can tell you percentage-wise to give you what that is. Most of the officers that work for our agency live in Palm Beach County, if that helps. A lot of it's driven by what they can afford. You know, they have a family, they have kids, they need big houses, etc. Sometimes just land in general right now, it's just very, very expensive. I think it's everybody's interest to live close, but it's just based on their personal financial issues. What was about the training of the wellness people. They do go through training. The volume of training is built on the person that's in charge of the program, but the training is not just wellness as you know it, health-wise. We have a financial component to it. Some people don't know how to balance their budgets properly, and they don't have any money, and then they're living like poor people when they're making decent salaries. You know, what are they doing? We have a gambling problem. We have a management aspect. We have a physicality aspect to it where physical fitness is important. You know, being fit, being healthy gives you a good state of mind. You know, if you're happy with the way you look, or if you're staying fit, you're going to be healthier. You're probably going to treat people better if you feel better. We do have the wellness as it relates to drugs and alcohol, but everybody's kind of going to different avenues as it relates to wellness. There's schools that come up that are put on by other agencies and FDLE and different entities within the state, and they go to them based on what specialty that they are actually associated or affiliated with.
We have some people watching us on KOP TV, and they're singing some questions. One question, getting back to the body cameras, are all your officers required to wear them? All sworn officers?
All the police officers that work the road, that are handling calls for service, have them. So anytime you do a police service call and you call for the police, he or she is wearing a body camera.
In the Memphis case, there was a camera that was blurred until the very end, and another camera aimed at the sky. I'm not sure if you remember that footage. What is your policy to prevent something like that from happening? I know you said earlier that they have to be on all times. If someone violates that policy, how do you deal with it?
They're going to get written up, and they're going to go to internal affairs. And internal affairs is a big deal. Internal affairs can hurt you in a sense. It's not designed for that. It's designed to correct the errors and mistakes that are happening. We will write people up when they make mistakes to correct a shortcoming. We spent a lot of time with educating our officers so they put out a good product. What was the other half of your question? I'm sorry.
You basically addressed it.
But there was another thing that you asked me something else. I'm sorry.
The other one was, how do you address that?
The camera part. That's the part. We don't have the officers don't have the ability to blur it out. They don't have that, so I can't speak for what that was on TV where you didn't see anything.
I think it's the motion.
But here's the thing: sometimes it's not on purpose. When they put body cameras on, and I got my hands up, like, sir. Now my hand looks like it's blocking the vision, or maybe I have maybe I have a taser in my hand. And look, the camera's behind the taser, and sometimes you could say, well, what's that? It's blocking the view. How come the officer did that? It's not a perfect world. What's the best place to put it? You know, I'm right-handed, I'm left-handed, and there's a lot of stuff on the vest that the officers wear. But for the most part, it captures the majority, and there's always more than one officer on scene. So one camera may not actually pick up what you want. We shift to your camera afterwards. Oh, C-Ron's camera caught it all, or somebody else's camera. But it could happen. It's not intentional, but just by virtue of where you are, if we're very close, the camera's capturing his chest. If I'm a little further away, I'm getting a little bit more. But the problem is this, but the camera's like 180. It kind of does this. But what if I'm standing like this and I'm seeing it and I'm just listening? I'm really not capturing it. But there are officers who are standing on scene like that because they know they have the camera on. They want to wear it in a way where it's capturing this. And it's just the way we are. Not all agencies wear them. We were one of the first agencies in Palm Beach County to start wearing them. And I absolutely love it. A lot of people are like, man, we can't, it's going to capture us in the car, calling our wives and girls. Be quiet. It's designed for what it's for. I will tell you, so many people used to come in and complain and say, hey, he did this, he did that, she did this, she did that. And I'd say, okay. And then I'd watch the video and I'd say, didn't happen. And a lot of times we'd be on the phone. Yeah, he did this, she did this, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I'm sorry, yeah, let me look into that for you. I'll call you back. I'll review the video. I don't say anything about a camera. I just say, I'll get back to you. I go back and review the video, never happened. So then I call them in. One lady said, we were rude to her daughter, my daughter said, and okay, maybe, I'm not saying it didn't happen, but when I reviewed the video, it didn't happen like that. And you know, your daughter's telling you a story, it must be true. So I called them in anyway, and I didn't call her in to make her feel bad. I called her in just to make sure she knew we did it right, and her daughter may have just misunderstood. She just might have been upset because she didn't get a ticket. And I think the cameras save us more than anything else. It does tell a story, and we're going to keep wearing them.
Is the public allowed to see that footage?
The body camera under public record laws allows you to put in and say, I want to see the footage under that. The only time you can't see it, when I say you can't see it, is if there's an active investigation going on, it may be subject to delay based on the investigation. But under public records laws, everything we do, you have access to.
So all they have to do is come in and say, I'd like to, on the public records 119, I'd like to get a copy of that footage.
Correct. There's usually a cost associated with that because there's time involved, but that doesn't matter. You know, it's just you have the right to actually view that and see that. It's all under public record.
We have a question from the audience.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chief, for being here. So when I reflect on the Memphis case, I would suspect a little bit more than 3 weeks ago, if we would have if the community of Memphis was to have one of these type forums with Chief Davis, many of the same things that you were saying, she would say. Almost, and I've had many opportunities to talk to those of you who are in leadership at police departments, law enforcement, and clearly you've got the training mapped out, you have the protocols mapped out. Something still seems to be wrong. And like we talked, so if you go back and I can remember what brought us to cameras, I can remember the incidents that, especially when we started getting telephones and you can video it. Now it is the special tactical units that are now being reviewed. What disappoints me is that something's wrong in the culture. Something's wrong in that culture. And it would be hard for me to believe that those of you who are in law enforcement don't see what's wrong in that culture. I don't know what I can do in the external. I would love to understand it better. But for what I saw this most recent incident, it will be asking a lot for me. I'm not asking you to believe it, to believe that there weren't folk in that police department that didn't know that behavior exists. So my question is, as a professional, what are you all doing internally to begin to monitor yourselves in a way that begins to eradicate bad police? Because you can say bad apple, but at some point you make me wonder if it ain't the apple that's bad, but the barrel.
I appreciate that statement and question. It all starts with training. It all starts with recruiting. Right when they walk in that door, before you even have the opportunity to get in my building, I'm not going to give you window dressing as a response. And what I mean by that, I'm not going to give you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you the truth and what we do at our agency. It's very difficult to get on our agency. It takes almost 3 months just to get through our application process. That says a lot as to who we're hiring, who we're getting. There's background checks, there's psychologicals, there's polygraphs. There's a lot we spend a lot of money. It's an investment we're making into people that are going to be wearing a uniform that have the potential to take people's rights away. You know, we want to make sure that we're getting the best of the best. And we don't always hire people. We were 17 short when I took over. And a lot of that is what's going on in society today. A lot of people don't want to be police officers because they're scared. Or people that were police officers just want to get out of the business because they're tired of being second guessed and questioned. Whatever it may be. And maybe some of those bad apples just said they had enough. But be that as it may, we make it very, very difficult for just the nonchalant, everyday person to say, hey, I want to be a cop, I want to work in Delray. That's great, but we really go out of our way and we spend a lot of time and money making sure that the people that are walking in our door are great and what we want. Now, is that guaranteed? No. I could sit here and tell you all that stuff. There could be somebody that gets through. We all go on an interview. You interview, you're a rock star. And then later on, we find out who you really are. And I'm kind of joking because we all go on an interview, we all have people that we work with, and you know you act different in an interview. You bring your A game to your interview. And then maybe if you're a real true person, maybe I'm getting that A, maybe I'm getting a C student later on. But it starts in the beginning on the recruiting end. Training, we are constantly training. Now, after I recruit you, you got to go to the police academy for 6 months and demonstrate you can still do the job. When you get done with those 6 months, now you're 3 months into mine recruiting, 6 months into the police academy, now you go through field training. You're not done yet. It takes you another 5 months to get through field training before you can go out on your own. So we're talking about 14 or 15 months before he or she is ready to help, have their own car, do their own calls for service. That speaks volumes to what it takes to get there. Now, don't know who I'm going to get yet because now maybe they're not great. Maybe I am getting a C student, but that's where supervision comes into play and constant training. I believe in training. You got to stay with it. If you don't use it or lose it. If you don't constantly train, then to me, there's going to be failures. So we really stay on top of it. And supervision, I can't do it all. I have Delray. Daryl's got a span of control, and Daryl's got people working underneath him. But we hold our people accountable. And I just don't say it. I have a very healthy environment. I'm structured and strict, but I'm also a good-hearted person. I believe in treating people right. I believe in being polite. I believe in treating people in a way where even if you make a mistake, I can tell you messed up, I can hold you accountable, but you can still walk around with your head chest puffed up and still feel good. I will tell you, we do the best we can. There is always going to be somebody that does something silly, but we take immediate corrective action. There was a gentleman that worked here that to me had a terrible attitude out in the street. And I think I shared this with you at the elders meeting. I didn't care for it. It was a gentleman that came, one of the gentlemen at the elders meeting said he was stopped by one of the officers and he was rude and talked down to him and just felt he was unprofessional. I knew exactly who that kid was. Delray knows who that guy. He and I were like losing our mind because we didn't have enough juice at the time to really do anything, but we thought that kid was a bad seed. But we were on him all the time. We're focused on him. He's a problem. He got fired. He got fired because of us, because of people like Daryl and I who were saying, no, we're not tolerating that. I don't walk around not trying to hurt anybody, but if you're not good at our agency, you're making my team look bad, you're out. And you're a liability. You know, you are subject to lawsuits, you're treating people poorly, even if no one sues us. You represent my agency, that's my face. If you say something silly to somebody, that's me. Now I gotta own that. And I have one bad experience, I think you all stink. So the proof is in the pudding. I can tell you all day, all this stuff, and you've been around long enough, you're a smart guy, but I can only tell you what we're doing to make it difficult for our officers. When I say difficult, to make it in a way where we're holding them accountable and they gotta do a job in a way we expect them to do it.
Before we move on, Chief, a question online. Anger is an emotion that everyone feels. In the Memphis video, we're able to see the police officers get angry and start to take it out on the victim who's causing them to become angry. Is there anything in your training that teaches individuals to control their anger?
Well, we like to police ourselves, and unfortunately, I can't control the individual when he comes into work. I would love to tell everybody, do the right thing today, be good, take care of yourselves, take care of your neighborhood, and have a nice day. I don't know what that person did last night. I don't know if he's in a fight with his wife. I don't know if he's having financial issues. I don't know what's going on. But we are aware of the character. I have supervisors in the back of the room there that pay attention to these people. It's not, police 30 years ago is not what it is today. We are at a higher level of expectation. This is a professional job now. There's a lot of pressure that's put on us to do things right the first time. You know, there's not a lot of room for error. We police ourselves, and I know me well, as you're policing yourselves, how do you know you're really doing anything wrong? Because you might just ignore it. No. I say that because everybody's held accountable. I hold the assistant chiefs accountable, assistant chief holds the captain accountable, captain holds the lieutenant holds the sergeant, right down to the officer. If they're not doing it right, we're gonna make sure we make the change. We're gonna be on them. That's our job. You talk about officers making sure they're doing it right. Supervision and management is what makes this happen. You know, there's a saying, and it's really nothing to do with what we're talking about tonight. People don't quit their jobs, they quit their managers. You know, managers can make your life miserable, or they can make your life great. I say that as a little segue because we expect our bosses and managers to stay on our people and police them correctly. So it's important that we do it, we believe in it, we have a general order that dictates, that says you will make sure when you're on scene that people are being treated right. And if you witness it, as I stated earlier, you're just as liable as the person that's being disrespectful. So we take it very seriously. I hope that you understand that. It is something that we do, we believe in, and it's a protocol we have at our agency.
Sir.
Chief, we do appreciate you being here tonight,
Yes, sir.
but this issue is bigger than Delray.
Absolutely.
We've seen it over a span of time now. We're almost going back to the 60s, where we're watching black people being beaten at no cause at all. This is continuing. We watch beatings after beatings, killings after killings, and it's all directed toward black men. We've gone through a lot of training. We've been working with our youth, telling them what to do when they come in contact with law enforcement. And then you see the video, the young man in the vehicle being taken out, no questions being asked as to who he is or what he has done. He's just being grabbed and beaten. We watch a video that's going viral now over, I guess, the Delray, where the dog was attached to the person laying out on the ground. The officer not only took the dog and put him in the car, but also once the individual got out on the ground, he continued to let the dog bite on him as if the individual was not human. So this is what our kids are seeing. This is what our grandkids are seeing. What do we tell them? What do we tell our young black men? You know, how do you protect yourself? How do you present yourself to the officer when you're stopped? We're in a state of confusion now. It's not a question, I'm just putting it out there. This is bigger than Delray, because we don't just drive in Delray.
Of course. I'm going to tell you, and please let me finish my statement when I say this. I am not a black man. I don't know what it's like to walk in a black person's shoes. And I say that with the utmost respect and without any discourtesy. And I say that because I want to say I know how you feel. You say, you know, you really don't, because you don't know what it's like. I want to tell you that I'm smart, I'm intelligent, I can read, and I know right from wrong. I'm compassionate. It hurts my heart to see stuff like that happen. I absolutely hate it. I'm not racist. I was brought up in a mixed community. I was brought up in public schools. I was brought up in Pompano Beach. It was from a little kid. I was with diversity from day one. So for me personally, I like sports. So I was always commingled with diversity in sports. Me personally, I hate that stuff I see on TV. Even if I wasn't a police officer, I hate it. Back to my original statement, I can't possibly feel what you feel, what you see on TV. I'm Jewish. My people were murdered in the Holocaust, millions. I feel for the tragedy and loss and pain that's going on. However, I can't blame everybody who was German and say that they're all bad. You know, I'm smart enough to know that there's some bad people out there. There's also some good people out there. I control the things. I control the things that I can control. Delray Beach.
But what do we tell our youth?
Now, the kids today in Delray Beach, but I'll tell you globally, you just gotta be respectful, and if people are mistreating you in any police department, report it. Don't challenge them, don't take them on. I watch TikTok, my daughter turned me on to TikTok, I never did that, I'm not, I don't know. I never did Facebook, I never did that stuff. But I watch the TikTok every now and then just to kind of get up on what's going on with today's youth and stuff. And you see on the TikTok, they're challenging the police, challenging the police, challenging the police. And it's almost like you're egging them on, trying to create a problem where maybe they make a mistake. And that's not really what we should be doing. And I don't want kids to be going out there and saying, I'm going to challenge the police so I can sue the police department. To me, that's terrible. I think in its basic form, we teach our kids the best we can, courtesy, being good to one another, that there are bad people out there, and don't be like them. You know, two bads don't make a right. And I can only tell you, I'm a father, I'm 57 years old, I'm not a little kid, I've been around the block. I don't condone any of that behavior, but I wish I could tell you I could get rid of that stuff. I hate it, I hate seeing it on TV, I hate going on, I don't like anybody being mistreated. No, I don't care what color you are, male, female, makes me, I'm in church, so I can't tell you what I really think. So I'm trying to keep it clean. I hate it. But to answer your question, I say we just keep doing what we know is right as parents. We teach our kids right from wrong. If someone's discourteous to you, you just tell your kids, man, don't take them on. Don't challenge that guy. Don't stand up and be like, oh yeah, but no, don't do that. There's a different course. There's a different way we can handle it. I can't control, we have bad officers every single time, just like you can't control the person at Publix, the person at Walmart, and everywhere we go, there's bad people everywhere we go. Police, we can't get away with as much as maybe at Walmart. We gotta be doing it right most of the time or all the time.
So Chief,
Yes, sir.
as you know, police-community relations is so vital in this equation. What are some of the programs you have in place to make sure this works in the city?
Well, we do a lot of, I hope I answered your question, sir, and I'd be glad to talk to you more anytime. We do a lot with our community. I say as a police department, we probably do more than most police agencies. We do everything we can to accommodate our youths. We have programs like Kids and Cops we do. Reading. We have a criminal justice program at the high school and at one of our middle schools now. We do Shop with a Cop. We have Holiday where we during the Christmas season where we give kids a $100 gift card. We're doing anything. We do more, the turkey giveaway, but that's family. We do everything and anything we can. The youth is the future. So we can get to the kids at a young age and let them know, as far as police is concerned, we're not the bad guys.
That's the youth. What about the adults? Do you have like a community-oriented police unit or anything that actually devoted to the community? In the past, I know we had
volunteer program.
No, citizen police and community-oriented policing unit division.
We did have the citizens police. Unfortunately, that thing called COVID came and kind of messed everything up. We have to rebuild that now. We're rebuilding our volunteer program, our citizens community program. We'll start doing that again and having our Citizens Academy, the Haitian Academy, with elders we work with. We will work with our community. I was talking to someone in the parking lot earlier. We'll go wherever you want us to go. If you want us to come to your church, we'll come. If you want us to come to a school, we'll come. If you want us to come to your job in Delray, we'll come. I'm here to be an ambassador for the police department. If we can build positive bridges, knock down that negative stuff, I think it's great. It really is limited to your imagination. Hey, you know what? Having a birthday party, maybe we can't go to the party, but maybe an officer can stop in and just say, hey, how's everybody doing? And it took 3 minutes to make everybody smile and happy, and we go on our way. That stuff is priceless. Just doing those little things. So
during the pandemic, you did that as well. You guys rode around parties and other.
We did commemorative stuff. We did celebrations, graduations, birthday parties, because we really were limited in that contact that we normally have with the community. So the next best way was create the space, keep the 6 foot distance, but still be out there with our community as much as possible. So,
Get your ice cream truck.
and the
Ice cream truck. I don't forget the ice cream truck.
Everybody loves ice cream.
Now, what's the story behind this ice cream truck? This is the only city in the state of Florida that gives away ice cream to gives away ice cream to kids. What's the purpose behind that?
Ice cream makes people smile.
There you go.
And ice cream makes you happy. It's so funny. I went to an event out of town, and the ice cream truck came up, and they asked me, what is it with the ice cream truck? I said, it's simple. It's just, everybody loves ice cream. I don't know what it is. It makes people smile. So it's a silly concept, but it breaks down barriers. Kids are happy. Even the parents want more ice cream than the kids do. But it's just, like, we need more ice cream trucks. That's what we need. But it really was a funny, nice, kind of comical thing that we did that really blew up and turned into something really good. And it's amazing. I say jokingly, but it might not be a bad idea. We got a couple more ice cream trucks. It's not the answer to everything that's going on, all the complicated questions that we ask, but it's a start, and it does build relationships. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, hi, good evening. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
We know that mental health is a very real issue in our community and our society. And we also have seen how certain situations have played out with police and mentally ill people coming into an encounter, how that has turned out not so well. Do you believe that there are calls which should be better answered by healthcare providers and not the police? For instance, like the mentally ill individual. And if you do, what are you doing to advocate for the change to this practice?
Well, great question. We, as police, are often called for anything and everything, and it includes dealing with those that have behavioral issues, for lack of a better term. We are trained, because in the past, we just went there and we didn't have to necessarily deal with them. Somebody was acting, excuse me when I say it, someone was acting crazy, and we just didn't know what to do with them. you just threw them in handcuffs and you took them somewhere. You took them to the hospital, took them to the jail, whatever. But we really didn't have the mechanisms in place. And the times have changed. There's more people who have behavioral issues now. We can't deal with them the same way, and we don't. We do have training. We do de-escalate. We do work very slowly. When we know we go to a call that somebody has that potential, maybe you don't know until you get there. But once we get there and we know, we slow things down because often the person doesn't truly understand. And if we have the ability to slow it down, we slow it down because we know it doesn't take us but a few minutes to realize there's something wrong with this person. I'm not a doctor, but there's something wrong. But we train our people to see this, we train our people to move slowly with it. So it's not just something that each person just kind of decides how they're going to do it. As an agency, we make sure that we deal with those situations. We also have specialty people who go to schools and learn how to deal with those specific things at a higher level. And then we often, if it gets complicated, when we slow things down, we may call them, he or she, over to help because they have more specialized services in that. And then they become sort of the front people. We have about 20 people who do that. But every officer is trained to de-escalate and work very slowly with those that may have issues because they don't understand what they're doing. And often throwing somebody in handcuffs or giving someone a command and they don't even understand what they're doing. We may have to arrest them, but we want to make every step before we get to that point to make sure we're doing it the way that needs to be done. Did I answer your question?
Yes, now they've been trained also not to use those stigmas of being crazy, acting crazy, and or whatever other stigma that words that we commonly use to refer to people with mental illness. They know not to go to that, have that encounter and then call the person those kind of names.
The officers, you mean? Or
yeah, the officers.
We don't refer to anything derogatory like that. We know when we encounter somebody, and you all know, you're out in the public, you go somewhere, you see somebody's not acting right, you just assume they may have an issue. I don't know what it is, it's nothing bad, but I just know that they're not acting the normal way as we know as two people communicating. But we don't treat them any differently as far as disrespect or discourtesy. We actually slow things down and we work with them. It's a lot of communication. There's a ton of communication. It's all about communication. Unless it's something emergency where we got to take some action with this person right away, we usually have all the time in the world. And we will often communicate. We get a mom or a dad or a brother or family member to help. And then a lot of times, that's what makes these things resolve. It's not so much us taking that hands-on action. It's more about slowing things down and dealing with those people who have behavioral issues. But we are well aware of that because we got so many of that in Delray. For some reason, we got a lot of that. But we work with them. It just is what it is. It's just a byproduct of where we are. We're a very diverse community, and they're here. And there's nothing wrong with that. But we are trained to deal with them in a very different way so that we don't misunderstand and automatically take action because we may think that person's being aggressive or not listening. We know, and we actually do internal training annually to make sure that everybody understands that slow this stuff down, and we talk about how to deal with those who have.
Correct me if I'm wrong, you have a unit, Ariana's unit that deals with the homeless and they're trained for that, social worker.
Now, we do have an in-house social worker, our outreach unit. She's a licensed healthcare professional. It doesn't tie into us as officers, it's for the community in dealing with homeless, behavioral issues, alcohol, drugs, those that are out there, and I'll call them the homeless people or transient people, no disrespect. The words change all the time, so we're just trying to keep up with the proper terminology. But we have a unit in place that actually provides assistance. And the days of arresting homeless people are over. You have somebody that's in front of your business or in front of your house, you don't want them there, we go there, you gotta leave. And in old school ways back in the day, you just arrested them and they were gone. And they just show back up again. But that's not fixing our problem. So we took a different stance. We hired a person and created a unit. We have 2 officers and 2 advocates assigned to the unit. And what we did is this: start providing services. What do you need? I need clothes. I need socks. I need a bicycle. I need a doctor's appointment. I need to go home. Where's home? Philadelphia. We'll get you a ticket. they need a shower. Now, the homeless people around here, and they don't have a place to shower or get cleaned up. Well, if we can put them in clothing and clean them up, they don't look like homeless people anymore. And that's actually a good thing for our community. I don't necessarily want homeless people in front of my house, but if I have a business and has a park bench, it's a city park bench, he can sit there or she can sit there legally. But if I can clean them up, feed them, provide services, they may need an ID card and they don't have the money to get it. We're gonna help them get it. So we ended up doing something very different in our agency, and that's providing sort of like a full service wraparound unit that really goes the long distance to help people. And that's very different because you could argue that that's not police work, but that police work changes all the time. And we got those people in our community that definitely need the help, and we provide that service. So to answer your question, that unit is very effective in dealing with those also that have behavioral issues. We have everybody's name who is homeless in our community. And we don't do that to like hurt them. We do that because we know that there's someone gonna pop up and they're gonna have an issue with somebody, and we know their issues, we know their behavioral issues, we know their sicknesses. We often know a little too much about them than we probably should, but it's for a good reason and for a good
Building relationships.
Correct.
Brother Carl.
Okay, I want to say, I thank you for coming and doing Black History Month, and we were discussed here in Palm Beach County, and we do have some good nuggets as it relates to policing. The only policing agency that I know inside of Palm Beach County that has had the opportunity to embrace the idea of changing the value of Black people is the school district policing agency, where they discovered that we were being miseducated. And those, not just our community, but everybody's been miseducated. My point is, when we look at the training that was mandatory for the school district, they gave them 1 day of training as it relates to the value of African Americans because of the miseducation that the educational system that is being fostered here in America, in Florida, has provided. My question to you is, are you aware of any of the training that went on at the school district level as it relates to improving the relationship between the African American community and the policing agency? Do you have any knowledge of that kind of activity?
I don't know. I heard of that program. I know the chief. I actually sat in a meeting with her a few weeks ago, and I heard that program come up, but I just don't know enough to speak on it.
Okay, well, I'm hoping and praying that you would take a serious look at it, because policing inside of the United States, and we here in Palm Beach County, because of our efforts and because of our community, we have some good nuggets, some good product that we've created as a result of our demise. And I think we need to be a little bit more knowledgeable with some of the people inside of our community. And that's the basic thing I want to say. Who do you have inside of our community that is actually talking to you about our reality? Because we understand that we have a lot of people that's been in the past been making deals for themselves as opposed to making deals for our community. So it would be nice for you to expose those people that you're working with so that we can do an evaluation of ourselves and our community. And I would love to hear Delray some kind of way make a partnership with the school district, since that answers the brother question. What are you going to tell our children? We're going to tell our children that y'all need some more training as it relates to the value system that is for us. And I say that sincerely, and I pray you go out to the school district and get some training.
Thank you.
Chief, let's say back home, do residents have a way to file complaints against officers, and how does that work? Explain, please.
We take any and all complaints. You just walk into the police department and you can make a complaint. We don't argue with you. We don't tell you your complaint is not a complaint. You walk in and you say, I want to make a complaint. We take any and all complaints. We are transparent with that. So you have the ability to walk in any day, say, or night, and say, I would like to make a complaint against Officer X. And they will immediately take it. A supervisor will come out, and we're not questioning you, saying, well, that doesn't rise to a level. No, that's not their job. Their job is to allow you to voice the complaint. The body camera, it kind of changed the complaint process where you don't have to write it down anymore, because a lot of people just didn't want to sit there and write 3 pages of a complaint. It's easier for me to tell you the complaint. So that actually, the body camera became a very helpful tool as it relates to walking in and making a complaint. But we take them all, and we are transparent. You make the complaint, and we'll definitely get looked at.
Follow up. Do the offending officer, is he or she made aware of the complaint? And if so, how do you assure residents that they're protected against retribution? And do they have a chance to, do you tell them the outcome at the conclusion? A lot of questions, but the first one, do you make the officer aware of the complaint?
We do. And that's not to get anybody, like, if you came in and made a complaint, it's not to put you in a spot where, oh man, the officer knows it was me, now I'm in trouble, he or she's gonna, do some kind of retribution. No. I'm gonna tell you that has never happened in 27 years I've been here. They're notified of the complaint, and all they're thinking about is how do I get myself out from underneath this? Now, could be frivolous, could be no grounds for the complaint, but there's no retribution. If you for 1 second feel that by virtue of you making that complaint, that there's a police officer now looking at you funny or reacting or doing something to you, you call me and I'll take care of that. But I'm not aware of that happening. But the officer's put on notice and the complaint process goes all the way through. Now, we vet out the complaints. It will go through a process. It'll go to the supervisor and it'll go to, Daryl works on one side of the house, Assistant Chief Hunter. Those complaints will come to him for review because anybody can make a complaint about anything. Now we gotta make sure there's some substance to the complaint before we launch it to internal affairs. How does Daryl do that? Daryl can look at the body camera and say, there's nothing to this complaint, I already reviewed it. Daryl's gonna reach out to the complainant and say, I reviewed or whatever, that person's gonna know, or he'll send a letter. But there's always gonna be a correspondence to any and all complaints. It's just, some are gonna go to internal affairs, some won't because we know right up front by watching the body camera that there was no grounds for it. But most of the complaints, when they come through, if there's any iota, unprofessionalism, misconduct, some kind of police brutality or something that they did, they are going to internal affairs. I don't hide nothing. I'm not trying to hide anything. If you messed up, you own it. And we just got to deal with it and how do we make it better. But I'm not sweeping anything under the rug. I'm not covering for anybody. If you messed up, it's on camera. You got to face the music.
This is such healthy dialogue. Cynthia, you're next. Ms. Miller, you're next, and we have the questions keep coming in. Let me also acknowledge the City of Revere Beach Police Department for being here and the School District of Palm Beach County. Thank you.
While you're on the complaint, may I have asked a question there?
Complaint?
And then I'll
Go ahead.
go on. Do you know how many complaints your department receives annually? How many would you say are valid and how many you say has no merit to it?
We do keep those statistics. I just don't have it for you tonight, but we 100%.
You gotta get some numbers when you coming out to us. We're gonna ask numbers. We want to hear numbers. I do have two more C-Run outbreaks.
I'll make sure I get that for you, Millie. I'll get the response, the answer for that I have for you on Sunday.
Yeah, we want to
Deal.
get some numbers.
We're gonna get it for you. Miss Cynthia.
Good evening. I appreciate the conversation. Again, I'm not a resident of Delray Beach, but I spent many years working in the city of Delray Beach, teaching at one of the local schools here. But I want to drill a little deeper into community relations as it relates to DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. What specifically are officers trained in to enhance cultural relevance, responsiveness, or interactions with the community? Be it the Black community, the white community, the Haitian community, the various diverse population that you have here in the city of Delray Beach.
We engage with our community, and that's probably the number one thing we do at this agency that I can't speak for other agencies. We are very engaged, and a lot of what we learn is from the community. You know, if you go to the Haitian community, you learn from them. You go to their churches, you go to their homeowners associations, and those are huge. Because we score a lot of brownie points with getting to know people, developing relationships in the communities. You know, you go to the northwest side, southwest side, you keep engaged with what's going on in your community. You learn so much. A book isn't going to teach me that. But when you sit with the people and talk to people and engage them and get to know who they are and what they're about, you learn about culture, you learn about personality, you learn about issues or problems they have that they perceive. Not what I have, not what I perceive, because my eyes are different. You know, you're looking through the lens of your own eyes. I like to talk to you and see what you have to say. But that's us engaging with our community. We are so community oriented. It's, to me, I think we do it almost better than, I don't want to speak for other agencies, but we do it at a level that's extremely high. Because our success is based on this, what we're doing tonight. And we don't necessarily have these types of gatherings all the time, but we do a lot of events where you'll see police engaged, the police involvement. And the educational component is getting to know the people and getting into their grassroots of what they do. As long as you're inviting us, we're in. We're putting ourselves in your community anyway by virtue of the job that we do, but we take it to another level. Start talking to people, get out of your car, walk around, communicate. Those things go a long way. Just small talk. I small talked a guy the other day. He was a convicted felon 3 times and he'd been in prison for 10 years and I don't care. He's a good person. The day we spoke, but he felt so comfortable talking to me, we talked for like an hour. And that was cool because it was just 2 guys talking. I'm not judging anybody. Everybody's had a tough life. I don't know where that person's been. And their father was in jail, their mother was in jail. I don't care about that. Are you a good person today? But that happens through relationships. So to say how are we educating our people, a lot of it is just getting out in the community and hearing you and talking to you and taking guidance from you and learning from you the way you do business, how you came up, the issues that you see. Issues in one community is different than issues in another community. So, but it's a lot of this right here. So,
have you considered bringing in experts, say, on diversity training, as he said, or equity, into the, say, lineup or roll call or in the department?
We are required to do diversity training by Florida Department of Law Enforcement. So it's a constant educational component for us. It's something that we have to do to maintain your certification. So we do have that. But that to me, that's like a book. You know what I mean? The book doesn't speak. The book just tells you these are the things that you need to know regarding diversity. But it's this that speaks volumes for the reality of what we have in Delray. You know, a book is a book. It tells you right from wrong, consider this, culture, this, that. But it's doing this that really is the grassroots of how I get to know you and what's going on in your community.
Is restorative justice practices anything used by you guys?
Can you talk to me a little more about that?
Restorative work, meaning for situations that have taken place, is a way of building back relationships with things that have happened. So if there's a tragedy that has happened, it's a way of working back with the community to rebuild that relationship of the brokenness. It's used a lot in criminal justice programs and things like that, and in other law tactics, or criminal tactics in a sense. So I'm not sure if that was a part of anything.
I understand what you're saying. In layman's terms, that happens. Is it formal? Did we bring somebody in to teach that? No. But when we have issues with our community, when you know there's strain, you know there was maybe a shooting that occurred in a certain neighborhood, you know that there's some distance automatically. You know, and especially if there's a difference in the shooter color or whatever, you know immediately it creates space between residents and trust and officers. Once we get past that and once we establish whatever happened, we go back into that community because I need us closer. So we do it, just not on that formal level, but philosophically, when things go bad in our community that creates strain, like this right now in Memphis, this is creating strain. I didn't do it, but I'm wearing the same uniform as that guy that did it. So maybe I could be that guy, maybe, you know, in the eyes of some people in our community. But doing this, you look at me, you judge me, you hear my words, you know, am I being real with you, or am I just giving you lip service? Is there sincerity to what I'm saying? So this right here alone does a lot of that informally, but I don't want anybody in our community, when we do have those difficult times, to feel like we're going to turn our back on you or we're going to ignore you. I'm going to get right in your face and say, how can we fix this?
Let's not forget that a few years ago, you had a very good relationship with, I know when Chief Hunter was probably a lieutenant, had regular meetings with the clergy, monthly meetings with the clergy. You got a lot of information to the community that way as well. Ms. Redley.
Good evening. I guess what, as you know, all of us been watching what's been going on in the news as well. So I heard that you have a police advisory board. I don't know what their functions are, but I was just disappointed that they did not respond to what happened. Thank you, Alpha Phi Alpha, because I was pretty disturbed that we hadn't heard nothing from this community. And I'm hearing that you have a police advisor for what their purpose is. What do they do? Because I have, I'm disappointed if they're not speaking to you or your police officer about what happened or what will be happening in this community and how we don't get to this point that it does not, something like that happen in this community. Because there is no one in my community walking around here like nothing happened. Regardless where it is, it affected me. That was my son that was laying in front of a casket. I don't know him, but I felt that look. I felt that was my son. And no one has addressed you, hopefully with your police advisory board. I don't know what their function is at all. So I would like to know a little bit about what they are called to do other than nothing. I might be wrong because I don't sit on that board, but I'm addressing this because it is important. I see you doing a lot of skating, but let's deal with the real issue. How are we gonna not get to that point? All of us who we are, we still the same color when we walk out this door. Are we gonna still be treated the same as that man or any of us pulled out of the car? Because when it comes to cold and blue is cold and blue. Thank you.
Do you have a citizen advisory board? What exactly does it do?
We do have a police advisory board. It's comprised of community members. I do sit on that board as well.
How are they selected?
They are selected by the city. They go through the city and they go through a process, and the city picks them. And what they do is they're not internal affairs. They don't work at our police department. They ask questions. They can get involved in anything they want with regard to anything and everything. They can ask for police advisory, police statistics, internal affairs investigations. They meet every quarter.
Do you know the racial diversity makeup of the board?
It's male, female, black, and white.
Do you know how many people on the board?
We just added a couple more, so there's like 8 people, something like that. They just added a couple more, so some people didn't make all of them don't make the meeting, so.
When this incident happened, have you heard from them since this happened?
I have not, but that doesn't mean I haven't tried to reach out to the agency, because my plate has been full as a result of what's gone on with this. And they do not police us, though. The internal affairs section, us as bosses at this agency, we are 100% responsible for the actions of our police officers, and we're the enforcers. The police advisory board is a civilian entity that can get engaged as much as they want. They can ask whatever questions they want. They can make suggestions. They can get engaged with either providing education or wanting information. But with regards to this matter, that is on us as a police department. That's on us to police, to make sure that we're educating our people, we have quality people. I told you earlier, it sickened me to see that. I'm a father as well. To see that kid there, I watched it once and I couldn't watch it again. He played it for hours and it sickened me. And I don't need an advisory board to tell me that was bad and that was wrong. It was horrible. But I will tell you this, we take our officers' actions seriously. It definitely made us, Hunter and I, to say we need to make sure and remind these people, even though we are doing it right and we don't do it like them, it made us rethink. We need to remind these people, treat people with dignity, treat people with respect, and do the right thing out there. They got it immediately. We said that.
Let's get back to the police advisory board. So you have a police advisory board who do they advise, the city or the police department?
Police department.
Okay.
They make inquiries as they see fit. They ask for crime stats. They'll ask for internal affairs investigations. They want to know the results. They may ask questions why. They may have input with regard to not so much the outcome, but where they think that we may be missing something, or perhaps they feel that an investigation should have resulted in another way, and this is why.
So they actually see that
they're not engaged in the investigation, but they'll often ask, can we see a copy of that internal affairs investigation? They don't get it until it's complete, because it is considered private until.
Are the attorneys and law enforcement background?
Sorry?
The members, are they?
It's all different backgrounds. Okay. One's a pilot, one is a teacher, one is related to the FBI, one is, they're all different walks of life. Some are retired, some are young, some are old. It's like a cross section of very different people that are on this committee, and they can really influence depending on how much they want to get involved, but their limitations is only whatever they want to get, how far they want to get involved. But to talk about this, the actions of those officers, really, to me, it's not them. It's on us as an agency to make sure we're policing ourselves and that we're doing it right, and that stuff doesn't happen. We don't condone that. I will tell you, if I had any officers like that work for me, I'd fire them. I'd find a way to fire them. I'm not tolerating that. And all we need is that one guy to do something, or gal, one person to do something like that, and we'll ruin 30 or 40 years of what we got going here, and I don't want that. I don't tolerate that. I'm telling you right now, I'm easygoing, but I don't tolerate that nonsense. And I don't want that. This is my business. This is what I do. I want people to treat people like people. Some of us are educated, some of us are not. I don't care. You're either good people or you're not, you know? And my officers need to know. They meet with me. I took over as chief 6 months ago, 6 months ago. Now I have the opportunity. They sit in my office before they go out that door to get hired. And I tell them my expectations. And my expectations are that you will be decent, and you will treat people decent, and you will work hard, or you won't work here. So that doesn't mean there aren't still going to be somebody out there, because I can't control 160 people. I can only tell you what we are doing to make sure that that kind of action that we see in Memphis doesn't happen in our backyard.
Ms. Millie?
Chief, good evening, everyone. I echo Ms. Ridley. I am disheartened that there has not been a statement made by you in regards to the Memphis case, to the citizens of Delray. And thank you for coming. We do appreciate that. I heard you say you have a daughter. Do you have a son?
2.
You have 2 sons? And their ages?
15, 14.
Okay, have you had to have the talk with them?
I have a lot of talks with them.
No, the talk.
But tell me which one that is. I have a lot of talks with them.
If I ask this congregation about the talk, you know what I'm talking about, right?
When you say to me the talk, I think sexual in nature. That could be very different than the talk. I educate my teachers.
I think what she's trying to say, have you told him how to conduct himself when he goes out and gets stopped by an officer at a certain time, or how to conduct himself when stopped by a police officer, right?
Absolutely, I was gonna go there, I'm gonna explain it to him.
Yes,
Have you had, so I'll ask you, have you had the talk?
many times.
Okay. I think if I voice the sentiments of the majority of us in this room, our concern would be the way that our race is treated by the police department. I'm going to ask you a question. Do you think there are significant differences in the way the police interact with blacks? I heard you say you got a good heart and all of that. All of the talk has been good. But the way that the police department interacts with black people, do you see a difference there?
I don't see my officers treating any ethnicity or any race differently. I don't. Because if I saw them treating them in a way I'm guessing you're saying that could be negative, I would address that.
Okay, and I'm sure we differ with that statement. Do you think that the racial makeup of the police department should be similar to the racial makeup of the community it serves?
I think you should definitely have representation of your community, absolutely.
Do we have that?
We do have that. Could we have more? Absolutely. But it's just based on who puts in, who the applicants are. I'm always in favor of having a very diverse agency that does reflect the community. But we try to recruit, and we hope that we can get people that are from different ethnicities and different races to help sort of validate and make people feel comfortable when they see their own type. But sometimes it's not that easy because it's based on the quality, whether they can actually get through the process. And some people just, for whatever reason, they can't. But we try. for some reason, when we try to get other ethnicities, depending on what we're looking for, we're wide open. We don't block ourselves out and say we're only hiring a certain type. But we know we want to have representation in our community, that in our agency, that reflects our community. So we want to concentrate on getting a higher amount of people of diversity, if you will. And that's all diversities. That's anything but the average white male, white female, because that's not our makeup. That's some of it, but that's not all of it. But when we do that, sometimes we fall short, meaning we can't necessarily find qualified applicants. But that's just the nature of the beast. It's just nothing I can control. But we're very, very, very vigilant with trying to load up our department with a very diverse group of people.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
glad I could educate you on the topic.
That's all. Sorry about that. That was a different version of what I was thinking.
We have room for about three, let's see here. We have room for about three more questions.
Chief, the talk that I have with black men, young black men, every time I talk, the talk is, if you've never said sir in your life, when you get pulled over, you should say sir and yes ma'am. If you've never turned on the lights inside of your car, when you get turned over, your lights should come on. If you've never put your hands on your steering wheel, when that officer walks up to the side of your car, your hands need to be on the steering wheel, your passenger's hands need to be on the dashboard. My children, we started that at a very early age. I've only been stopped maybe once or twice with my children in the car. The lights came on and everybody's hands are on the dashboard. And I tell them, look, you don't want to get into a fight with these people. I tell all my clients, you don't want to fight with them on the street. They can kill you. They might not get away with it, but you'll be dead. You won't know what the result will be. They get you alone and they will beat you half to death. Has been seen they beat him to death in Memphis, and they did this thing recently in Delray, Delray a couple of days ago. So that's the talk that I have with young black men, young black women. Don't do it. Oh man, I beat that cop. The cops get up in the morning, they put on their pants just like you do. They put on a bulletproof vest, so if you hit them in the chest, it's not gonna work. They have the back belt with all of their equipment on. They got a taser, they can electrocute you. They got pepper spray, and you saw them try to blind a little boy in Memphis. They try to drown you with pepper spray. And then they got a radio that they can call 30 of their closest friends who just hanging out at Dunkin' Donuts waiting for something to do. But that's the talk, and I interject some humor in there, but that's the talk that I have anytime I speak with black people. Don't give them the opportunity to do that to you. You want to go home. You want to arrive alive. And whatever you got to do, whatever you got to do it.
I just have one additional question. Many years, maybe 10, 12, 15 years ago, when Gerard Miller was shot and killed, I can't remember.
I didn't have a great head.
But the community at that time wanted to have a citizens review board that had subpoena power. How do you see these two entities, the police advisory board versus the citizen review board, operating in the city of Delray Beach? I know they're two different, but I want to know what his opinion is of the citizen review board, because we already have a police advisory board.
The Citizens Review Board does have subpoena power, and that is, I don't make legislation. I don't dictate Florida state statute, but the state statute says that officer has a Bill of Rights, and the subpoena power on the Citizens Review Board would be in conflict with Florida state statute, and that's where the conflict lies. They don't mesh well in Florida, because there's a statute that says that the officer has a certain amount of protection and rights prior to and during an investigation. But that's not me, that's not Chief, that's not Delray. That's governed by the Florida state statute. The subpoena power would not work in Florida because of the Florida state statute that says these officers have this protection. Now, the protection is not set up to cover anything or hide anything. It's just to give the officer a certain right that he or she would have during an official investigation. That's all taped, that's all transparent. But the subpoena power with regard to that entity it's in conflict with legislation, but it's not me, it's not our agency. It's more of a legislative question, and that's why the city of Delray, it doesn't have it, because it would create conflict with Florida state statute. But I still like the idea of a police advisory board because it lends to some other entity besides the police department coming up with an outcome. Now, those outcomes are public record, you see them all, and I can tell you that they're very thorough and very detailed. And you can read about it and you can see it, but I love the idea of an outside entity being able to look at it and then asking questions, giving their perspective, and providing some maybe future assistance on how we can be dealing with it. But I can't say yes to the advisory, review board, because it does have a conflict with legislative mandates that Florida state statute does not correlate with.
Chief, I have a question here. Do you have poll cams, license plate readers, et cetera, tools to assist you in crime detection or deterrence or fighting?
We do, but we need more. And that's an issue that I'm bringing up with the city. I'm trying to get more cameras in the city so it's safer for us. You know, there's a lot of crime that's committed where someone will jump in a car and take off. If I had more pole cameras, more license tag readers.
What is pole cameras?
A camera on a pole, that's what captured that whole video that you saw in Memphis. The body cameras were so close, you don't really see everything. It was the camera that sat on a pole. Now, the pole cameras that we use are cameras that we may use in an investigation. They go up, they go down, they go up, they go down. But my idea of getting cameras in the city is really to make it safe. You know, there's crime happens in every city. You can't rid that. But it'd be nice to have video cameras splattered about the city so that we need a license plate, we need a vehicle type. You know, or if a crime occurs on your street, we're in the middle of building a real-time crime center. And the real-time crime center is going to be TVs in our police department. We're about a quarter of the way there. We have a whole room dedicated to this crime center. And my idea is not big brothers watching you or we're gonna spy on you. It's when you have a problem and you say, I got robbed on this street or my car got broken into on the street, we can look at a video camera. Now, you can't put video cameras everywhere, can you? No. But here's another thing. Some people have Ring doorbells. Some people have surveillance cameras at their house. There's a way for us to see that. With your permission, we would never be able to do it unless you said yes. But there's an actual computer program that allows every single person who has a Ring doorbell or some kind of internal camera to give us the ability to look at video should a crime occur at your house. It doesn't require everybody to buy the same stuff. But that's technology and money. And it's something that I want to make a pitch to the city. That was my intent to do it in January, February, got pushed back to March.
Do you need permission to go in? Can an officer just go in and yank the video?
No. You gotta have a warrant to do that. You can't just walk into your house and say, we're taking your video, you're taking anything. You gotta have a warrant, which means we have to have probable cause to take anything. If the crime occurred at that particular house, let's say there was a shooting at the house and we had access to the house by virtue of being a crime scene, we could probably take that video, but we would still subpoena, we would still get a warrant, we would just secure the house and do it the right way. Most of the time people give consent, but if someone said the person across the street video may have captured it, you can't just walk in there and take the video. I have to present it before a judge has to sign off on it, and I have to provide probable cause to justify why I would go over there, and it would be simply knocking on the door and saying, we would like your video. Here's a petition from the judge that will give us the right to take it.
Okay.
Earlier you mentioned there might be some challenges getting people from the community to represent. Do you have any youth programs that are molding the kids to become police officers?
We have two programs. One at Atlantic High School is a criminal justice program. It has like 150 people in there, and it's fantastic. Now, those kids learn. It's like ROTC. We're all familiar with ROTC. The kids wore those uniforms, and we did the same thing at the high school. And what we did was we found a way to create professionalism, courtesy, teach them about police tactics, teach them about if they want to work in the dispatch center, and it really it molded them kind of like the military. Not that strict, but it made them kind of squared away. It made them respectful. It taught them, and I think at a young age, I would say if you can get to the kids, Carver Middle School was interested, and so we created a program there. Same criminal justice program, just at a little lesser extent, but same idea with the idea that we can start training people on what we do as police. Now, not everybody wants to be a police officer, but that's okay. They're going to get an education. They're going to see what we do. We're going to teach them, and a lot of it is the character. There's a lot of character in there. I believe in kids being good kids, other than just being interested in police. What do you talk well to your parents? Do you respect authority? We teach them all that stuff. And I think that speaks volumes for our agency, because we're getting into the schools, and the schools recognize it and they appreciate us. And I think it's just a fantastic, easy, simple way to get to those kids as law enforcement. The police officers are actually teaching the class. So we just changed hands with one of our instructors at Atlantic High. We flipped it every so often. We like to move people around. It's just fantastic. I think we have about 20 kids from the Atlantic High School program in some way, shape, or form that are working in our police department. I think it's fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Chief, President Biden recently signed into law some mandates on how you operate as police officers. What are your thoughts on the proposed federal guidelines on police reform?
I actually brought some of those with me. It's funny you're asking me that. And I am definitely a proponent of it. And part of those standards, if you will, if I'm just going to hit on the headers that he actually mentioned, chokeholds and carotid restraints, that came up under his rules with regard to police restraint. We don't do those anymore. There is no chokeholds at Delray Beach. There is no triangular restraint. They give it a fancy name to make it not sound like a chokehold. We don't do that anymore. We don't train that way. We don't teach it, and it's written in our policy that you won't do it. He mentioned body-worn cameras, he meaning President Biden. He mandated federal agencies to carry body cameras, but we're not federal, but we carry them anyway, because I think that's the way to go, and I think it definitely speaks volume for the comfort and transparency of what really goes on. When I started, we didn't have them. It's he said, she said. You did this? No, I didn't. Yes, I did. Cameras sort of eliminate that. So I'm very much in favor of that. I'm in favor of all these. No knock entries. No knock entries are for search warrants. You don't just walk into a house now, and then someone's trying to defend themselves and then you get shot because you didn't know the police were coming to your house to serve a search warrant. That's a true story, and probably multiple, where SWAT teams were coming and doing these quiet entries, just slamming your door open. Even though we had probable cause signed by the judge, you had guns or drugs in your house, we have the right to be in there, but the no-knock warrant was dangerous because you're putting people's lives at stake that may be in the house as well as the person you're looking for, and it's not all the agencies have evolved to this yet, and there's a mandate by a certain date, but we don't do that. We don't do no-knock warrants. So I definitely support that. Timely and thorough investigations and consistent discipline. I'm all over that. As I said, I used to work in internal affairs, and I'm a proponent of holding people accountable. So we do that very timely. There is a time constraint on all complaints by Florida state statute. If we don't complete an investigation by a certain date, the case gets dismissed. That's not gonna happen. If we have a duty and an obligation to you all and to our agency to make sure that we're moving swiftly with any and all complaints. So I support that. Implicit and biased policing and training. We do that as a mandate through Florida Department of Law Enforcement. We do that regularly. We train people to understand the differences. Don't be looking at people's color or skin and saying, oh, those people, whatever. That's not tolerated. We don't do that. Somebody said it's like the sixties or something, that shouldn't be going on anymore. But that does not happen. At least I don't train it that way. Does somebody here have a story? Yes. Everyone's probably got a story where some officer did something stupid and I can't justify it, and I wouldn't dare to sit up here and tell you, well, he did that because. If it's wrong, it's wrong. But I support all these mandates that the president put down on a federal level. We are a progressive police department. We were doing all this before. We were very progressive from the standpoint of, we see things happening in life, we don't react. We try to get ahead of it. I think reacting is too late. And when you're too late, you have to keep explaining why and how come and why. You can't predict everything, but I think we're all smart enough at some point in our careers that you can see stuff coming down the pike. What can we do to get ahead of it? And a lot of that's just training, making sure you got the right bosses in place, making sure you got the right people working for you. And you get rid of the bad apples. If you got a bad one, get rid of them. I got no problem firing people. I'll sleep well.
We have one more question.
Yeah, thank you, Chief, for coming.
Yes, sir.
Talking to us in your transparency. I've got an issue, and I think Chuck really brought it up as well.
Yes.
About culture. And one of the things you've said, and I've heard it often, is we police ourselves, and we want us to be accountable. But what we're talking about here is accountability to the community, and I appreciate all that you've said, and praise God, we're living in Delray Beach. But we see it everywhere, and we hear we police ourselves everywhere. And so that doesn't give us any trust or any confidence that that works for our community, because the fact of the matter is we see it doesn't. And so I'm very concerned, and others that have talked about this, in terms of mental health of the policemen, because you're absolutely right, policemen are women. They're under a lot of stress, and you don't know any particular day when they come to work where they are in their minds and their hearts. What I have observed, looking at a lot of this on TV, is the swiftness with which their aggressiveness can happen. They arrive, person in a traffic situation, which should be an automatic. They pull out, the person says something to them, and there's a time spent where all of a sudden, as I'm looking, I can see that they're building up to the point where all of a sudden they're upset and angry at the person. So when we talk about mental health and emotional health of the policeman, it's important because every time they step out that car, they bring themselves with themselves. So they're having a bad day. What assurance, and I don't know if it's training. I really want to say it's in the recruitment and the attitude tests that are given that says this person has the attitude that we're looking for to be a policeman. And so are we doing anything there? And the follow-up to that, which may not seem to be connected, is, and we've seen this in Boynton, we saw this in Memphis, we've of course seen it with George Floyd, where these policemen had a record, other than Memphis, these policemen had a record of 2, 3, 4, 5, in fact, 15 incidents, but they're still on the force. Our question is, how could that be? You know you've got a bad egg, so why do you keep letting them out there to our community? And the last thing I'll say, and it is really a question, is in what I hope is probationary period, when they're riding along with the senior person, just the conversations that they have in situations that to me lead me to believe he's got a little short wire there. Short fuse there. Do you look at that kind of thing before you release them into our community? Because the answer is we police ourselves, but we see bad eggs all the time. And it goes along with saying, it's not the gun, it's the person. Well, excuse me, it's not the person, it's the gun.
I know what you meant.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Just to comment on some of what you said. Field training, when those officers are in field training, the trainers have gone to school and learned how to be a field trainer. That's certified by the state. Once they get out, they 100% need to be looking for those things that you mentioned. If they're off, it's noted. They do daily observation reports every single day of training. They have to go through 4 different phases of training. It takes 5 months to get through. With all those trainings, it's reviewed by a sergeant and a lieutenant. If something's out of sort, if they're not acting right, if they're not passing, and a lot of it's not just checking a box, it has to do with interacting, it has to do with officer safety, it has to do with being a professional. There's probably a checklist of 30 things or 40 things that they're doing throughout the day that they must demonstrate that they mastered. And they have a grading scale. They don't pass it. We have float people, and we send them on their way. It's an investment we lost, we didn't get any return on it, but we're not hiring them, and we just don't hire them. Now, the ones that we get out that go through that robust training, there is that training going on one-to-one when they're in the car. But once they get out on their own, we know they're rookies. We know, we gave them all the training, but the reality is when you get out there, that's where you get the true training. But we watch each other. You know, we watch each other doesn't mean we're covering up for each other. We're watching each other to make sure we're doing it right. We have a good agency. We have a lot of good officers. We have a lot of people who do things right. And I just want you to feel comfortable with that. We are not Memphis. You know, I would never condone any of that. People who have records like that, it's insane that there are police officers. If you have, yes, sir. Go ahead.
I said, praise God, I live in Delray. I'm not saying, but I'm saying the issue is, what are you all doing when you have multiple people who have multiple infractions? Do you say 3 and you're out?
No, it's a review process. If somebody's popping up on the radar, we call it an early warning system, because we don't want it to become Memphis. You don't want that to become your warning. That's too late. But you may have someone who's got an attitude problem, because I've had 2 complaints on this subject in the last 6 months. That's a problem, and that's a red flag. An early warning detection will come up, and it will get reviewed. It will get reviewed to the extent, does he need more training? Does he or she need more training? And we'll send it if we have to. But we do that because I don't want to wait for the incident to happen before we start taking action.
But is there also no training? This is not a good policeman, let's fire him. Is that part of the review?
If somebody's at our agency and they're at a point where they're problematic, we'll fire them. They'll be terminated. Just like the gentleman that got terminated because he was just not talking nice to people. He was being disrespectful. And eventually, after a couple of those incidents, Assistant Chief Hunter and I were going nuts, but we weren't in charge at the time. And we just said, this is a bad seed, this is a bad seed. Eventually, though, got fired. To answer your question, you just are not going to skate along here and make all these mistakes and think that you're going to hide in, the rough, and that's going to be okay. I'm telling you right now, the proof is in the pudding with me. I can sit here and tell you what I would do all day, but I don't tolerate that stuff. That stuff hurts the community. It breaks the public trust in the community, and I don't want that. I am only as strong as your confidence in our agency. I can sit here and tell you answers to every question, but I don't know how to convey to you other than telling my officers, training my officers, making sure we're doing everything we can to do the right thing, and then the product speaks for itself.
There you have it, ladies and gents. I hope you leave here tonight more enlightened and at ease. And should you have any questions that were not answered today, you can call 561-243-7800 and ask for his boss, the actress, and she'll arrange a meeting with them.
I'm going to say this. I appreciate you inviting me here. This is my job to do this with you. Some questions are not easy to answer. Some of you are upset and angry. I don't take it personally, but I understand and I empathize with you. Whatever we can do to make it better, I'm all ears, let's work together. I don't have all the answers. I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I'm just in charge of an agency and I'm doing the best I can based on my knowledge, training, and the way I was brought up to be a good man. But if you guys can help us out, all ears. You know, we work together as a community. We are definitely community-based police department. I take pride in that. And if anything's happening that I'm not aware of, or you're frustrated about something, let's talk. Let's talk about it. Don't get mad. Let's talk about it. Try to figure out what's the solution. I tell my people, when you're going to come to me with a problem, come to me with the problem and the solution. Let's try to figure it out together. I truly mean that. I hope you guys get a different feel for me and the agency. And if there's ever any issues or concerns or something I can help you with, please don't hesitate. Reach out to me. Reach out to our agency anytime.
I will now invite our president, Jackson, up for his closing remarks. As he comes, folks, diabetes is killing people in underserved communities such as this one. And on Thursday, February 21st, from 9 to 1, there will be free diabetes screening at Delray Park. Any further questions, see Commissioner Johnson, and she'll address them.
Thank you, Brother Stewart. First, I would like to thank the shepherd of this house for opening his doors and allow us to hold this forum, and also First Lady Jay as well. Thank you, Chief, for subjecting yourself to these questions. I know it's not easy and you don't have all the answers. We know that, but we do hope that you heard us today. We hope that you take some of our suggestions and recommendations and go back to the drawing board and do things to make it better and safer for our community. I do thank the community for taking your time out to attend an event such as this, which is very imperative and is much needed. To my brothers of Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated, located here in Delray Beach, Florida, South Palm Beach chapter, I thank you all for putting together this event, for noticing the urgency to act on this immediately and not waiting to put on this event. There's too many times that we see something like this happen, an incident in Memphis. We saw it with Breonna Taylor. We saw it with George Floyd. We saw it with Mike Brown. We saw it with all these other people. And we get angry. We get furious. We get upset. And then we sit and do nothing. And then we go back to our normal lives until the next event happens again. So I applaud my chapter for taking the first step. Is this end all be all? No. Will this forum tonight answer all of the questions? No. Will I walk out as a Black man and feel safe from the people that are sworn to protect me tonight? No. But continue to do forums like this will help. It's the first step. It's working together with our police department. It's coming to the table. It's giving them suggestions. It's the police department getting to know us, learning us. And I'm not talking about me as I sit here in this shirt and tie. I'm talking about me, the Black boy that's smoking a little reefer every now and then. I'm talking about the Black boy that walks the streets with my pants sagging. It's get to know those individuals because they are me. I am them. And these are the people that we need to protect. So again, I thank everyone for coming out here tonight. I thank everyone for your questions. Chief and the police department, I think you all for taking the time out to indulge us and find it important enough to come out and hear what we have to say. So I encourage all of us to work together and let's fight this fight together. With that, I close. Do you have anything else to say? So with that, I close. Thank you all and drive safely.